Welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations, a series of short and shareable conversation starters for those of us who have or love and support people with a complicated and beautiful brain. Here's your host, Angela Geddes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Kitchen Table Conversations. I'm so glad you're tuning in today. As always, our goal here is to spark reflection, some dialogue, and to raise some awareness around complex and important issues, right from the heart of where most learning, or most meaningful learning, really takes place, and that's our kitchen tables. Today, I want to talk about something that feels especially timely. We just went through, or going through, a federal election here in Canada, and like many of you, I've been watching social media light up with passionate and sometimes hostile opinions. It's got me thinking about how we talk to each other, especially when we disagree. And it reminded me of something that I've returned to many times in my clinical work, and that is cognitive distortions. For those of you who might not be familiar, cognitive distortions are kind of unhelpful thinking styles that distort how we perceive our experiences, situations that we're living in, and some would say our reality. They can show up in our personal relationships. They can certainly show up in our political beliefs and our self-perception. I want to go over a list of 10 cognitive distortions that are especially relevant as we try to make sense of the election outcomes and the societal division. But before we get there, let's zoom in a bit. And let's just reflect back. I named this podcast Kitchen Table Conversations because I really believe that respectful, informed dialogue is one of the most powerful tools that we have. That's how we learn, that's how we grow. When we sit down at a table with someone we care about, ideally, we bring curiosity and not combativeness. But somewhere along the way, especially in the age of social media, I think we've lost a bit of that art. Growing up, I was always a little confused by the idea that politics and religion were off limits. That those were things that you just didn't involve yourself in with certain people or at certain times. But those are the very topics that shape our communities, and avoiding them doesn't make them disappear. It just makes us less equipped to understand and want to understand each other. That said, how we approach these conversations, however, really does matter. And we all develop patterns, and, we only know what we know. And the way that we communicate is something that we've got kind of good at over the years, and especially the older we get. And sometimes we have to be curious about that and see whether or not it's still helping us. So too often, what I'm seeing now is a lot of labeling, a lot of shaming, and a lot of absolutes. So comments like, if you voted for them, you must be stupid. Or, we've just had the most embarrassing prime minister ever. Or you clearly didn't do your research. Those kinds of comments are everywhere. And for me, really, it's heartbreaking. These are not just mean words. They're also a reflection of underlying fear, anxiety, and real pain. I just walked by the television and, I saw a person on there almost in tears talking about how he is so surprised and really clearly heartbroken with the election results. So let's all take a breath together and reflect on some of these common thinking traps that many of us get into. And these in particular are what psychologist Dr. David D. Burns calls cognitive distortions. So number one, all or nothing thinking. And this is when we see things in black and white. Something's either good or bad. A policy is either perfect or a disaster. It leaves no room for nuance. Number two, overgeneralization. You see a single event as a never-ending pattern. For example, the country voted this way, so it's all going downhill. We forget that sometimes when a party leader changes, the party itself or the platform can change, and there is opportunity for hope. When we have a baseball team, lots of times the coach gets fired and things do change a little bit. But when we're stuck in this all or nothing thinking, we don't go there. or we're unable to go there and we overgeneralize. Number 3 is a mental filter. You dwell on the negatives and ignore the positives. So you might scroll through hundreds of thoughtful posts, but fixate on the one that makes you angry. Number 4, discount the positives. Even when something good happens, you might find a way to brush it off or dismiss it. That doesn't really count, because remember when, or look at this one. Number 5 is jumping to conclusions. So this includes what we kind of think as mind reading, or assuming that you know what others are thinking or they're going to do, or fortune telling, assuming that everything is going to go wrong. So you just wait, and I hope that you are able to say that you are responsible for the mess that the liberals are going to get us in, which is an actual quote on social media directed to people really close to me. So number 6, magnification or minimization. This is when you exaggerate the negatives or downplay the positives. We see this all the time. Number 7, emotional reasoning. You believe something must be true because you feel it so strongly. I feel scared, so things must be bad. And this all makes sense. But I've always said, whether I won the lottery or experienced significant grief, it's best not to make a decision or make an absolute comment or plan at that point, because your emotions are placing a bit of a shade or a screen in front of logic. Should statements. You criticize yourself or others with very rigid rules. People should vote like this, or I must always get it right, or I'm no good. So I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that, I must do this. We ought to have done that. Those kinds of things sometimes get us into trouble. Number 9 is labeling. So instead of describing behavior, you assign negative labels. So they're sheep. He must be a loser. Number 10 is personalization and blame. So you either blame yourself for things outside of your control or you blame others without recognizing your own role. So those are the 10 cognitive distortions that I've been using in my practice to help people identify what areas they might be getting stuck in. So I'm sharing them today because I do believe it's timely. And although I don't have everything all wrapped up either, I do check-ins with myself regularly, everybody. And I've got lots of learning and lots of growth, and I love sitting around my kitchen table with people who see things differently so that I can learn a little bit more and I can voice my concerns or my opinions and gather some hope and perspective from other people's lived experiences and their research. So I do really believe that's really, really important. So if any of these cognitive distortions sound familiar, you're not alone. These thinking patterns are human, but when they go unchecked, especially in these polarized times, they fuel disconnection and often they fuel pain. The truth is, we can hold multiple emotions at once. We can be frustrated and still respectful. We can be disappointed and still hopeful. We can disagree and still love each other. And we can accept some of the things that we just can't control. So personally, I don't publicly disclose who I vote for, and that's not because I'm hiding. I just believe that's my role, especially as someone who works in mental health and neurodevelopment. I'm here to support critical thinking and to offer compassion from all sides. When people say things like, you better be ready to take responsibility for this mess, that tells me that their fear has taken over their ability to dialogue, and we need to talk about that. Because real change doesn't come from shaming. It comes from understanding why people think the way they do, and that's a skill that I think we all can strengthen. As always, I encourage you to bring these reflections back to your own kitchen tables. Can we make space for curiosity again? Can we check our cognitive distortions before we post and respond? Can we choose kindness even when we disagree? I think it's possible. So thank you for sharing this space with me. I remain committed to the work of supporting people impacted by complex mental health and neurodevelopmental challenges. It is hard work, it's meaningful work, and it's deeply needed. If you're interested in learning more about some of our upcoming trainings, including our next round of social work, or training specifically for social work and allied health professionals who are involved in screening and assessment services and offering direct supports, and are interested in building skills and capacity, check out my website because there's a new round starting May the 14th. And the feedback from this training has been really, really positive, and I'm just so proud of it, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. And so, yeah, we're excited to offer another round, and we're building our community of people who have this advanced training so that we can make sure that there are fewer wrong doors for folks who are experiencing some really complicated mental health, addictions, maybe some challenging learning areas, some difficulties with relationships or keeping a steady employment, that kind of thing. So please feel free to check it out and share amongst your people who you think may benefit. And feel free to bring this conversation back to your kitchen table and share this podcast as if you feel so inclined. With many thanks, Angela.